Hello YouTube. Today I'm going to document the process of covering up scratches on trim that were the result of the cats that were owned by the previous owners of our home. Here you can see the rough surface left behind by years of abuse of cats walking around with their claws. The product I chose to use is made by JB Weld, which is well known for their two-part epoxies. This is another two-part epoxy. It's a wood filler repair putty. Underneath the cap you'll find a tube, looks like a little toothpaste tube. That is the cream hardener that you mix in with the wood putty. It's called a plasticizer, and the instructions on the back indicate you need to work fairly quickly. It begins to set in about 10 minutes, able to be shaped in about 20, and you can sand it in about 30 minutes. First things first, you need to clear off and clean off your surface. Here I'm just brushing off all the loose dirt and dust, followed by wiping down with a damp cloth. Here you can see the consistency of the wood filler before you add the plasticizer. It's pretty loose, a little bit like drywall mud, but a little bit more wet. I'm mixing it here on a scrap piece of wood, using another scrap piece of wood to mix it, just because I didn't want to have to clean up any tools. The instructions on the container indicate you can use acetone for cleanup, but I didn't happen to have any on hand, so I just used scrap tools to mix. The instructions say a 3/4 inch line of hardener added to a golf ball size amount of filler. So here I am adding just a little bit, not sure if it's the right amount, but it's close enough. And a little more for good measure. I decided to use just a small drywall putty knife, 4-inch knife. You can see it goes on a lot like drywall mudding, and that's actually pretty much what my experience was like. Very similar to drywall mudding, but you of course have to be careful that you don't work it too long, because as the filler begins to dry, it becomes a lot more stiff and harder to work with. So you want to make sure you only mix up enough that you can do within a reasonable time, probably 5 or 10 minutes. After waiting 30 minutes at least for the filler and hardener to dry, it's time to sand. I used a random orbital sander here. I'm sure you could use just a block of, just a sanding block or a piece of sandpaper by hand if you like, but obviously that's going to take a whole lot longer. And in the words of my wife, smooth as a baby's bottom. Here you can see the results from my first attempt. There's a few little pinhole pockets there that you can see, but if you go over it again with a real tight coat, you can sand it down again and get a nice, perfect result. I actually didn't even bother to fix this portion here where you see the pinholes. The paint filled them quite well. So after sanding, it's time to clean up again. First with the broom and again with the damp cloth. And now you're ready to paint. I put on a couple of coats. I used a high gloss paint, which is good for trim because it's durable. All in all, I thought it was a good product and the results turned out quite well, and you can't even tell that there were cats scratching their way around on this trim.